Hey fellow Tamers and DigiDestined, it's Mike AKA Synaku and welcome back to the OverGround channel. In today's video we're going to be doing a quick highlight that showcases the tricolor control deck that we faced off against JoDobbi's purple toolbox list in the latest exhibition match that was featured on the channel. So we're just going to go over this real quick, going to show you a quick rundown of the cards that are in the deck, why certain choices were made, and why certain cards are in there, and what changes were actually made from the match we had with Josh to what you see in front of you right now. So again, this deck plays similarly to the Yellow Angel Mega Zoo list that I'm going to be kind of flashing on the screen right now if you haven't watched it. And yeah, so in that deck, we used kind of a blue memory package to mitigate and control the amount of memory that we were giving our opponent based off the strong big megas that we were consistently throwing at our opponent. And we were using the recovery engine between, Magnagramon and Magna-Angemon to throw removal into our security stack and kind of use our security stack as a more aggressive form of interaction and removal to use against our opponent's Digimon. This version of the deck takes that concept and puts the removal directly onto the table in terms of instead of manipulating our security stack instead. So gone are kind of the red inclusions to try to force, fitting in things like Gaia Force and then forcing the Omnimon package like with the Volcanic Dramons and the Metal Sea Dramon. This version is a bit more oriented on controlling your opponent's ability to attack you, as well as kind of generating as much memory as possible during your turn to do what you need to do to prevent your opponent from attacking you while also giving them the least amount of memory possible. Now, in the showcase with JoDobbi, there is a lot of time where I'm giving him like 7, 8, 9 memory a turn. And that is something that is unfortunately a reality of this deck, no matter how much I try to kind of fix it up and try to rearrange it to kind of force that extra memory manipulation. But at the end of the day, the main core of the deck is very fun, and it's a different, refreshing take on the 1.0 format, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys today. So the main premise of the deck revolves all around Kentorosmon and Chimeramon. This was just kind of a fun little niche interaction that my buddy Frank and I wanted to build a deck around. And what started as just kind of a fun offshoot comment germinated into what you see before you today. And the yellow Megazoo deck is kind of a preamble to this at the end of the day, because it was a way to manipulate both blue cards and yellow cards, but then to play them in a non-traditional way outside of kind of the standard blue-yellow strategies that you see. And the biggest inclusion in that is Kaiser Nail that you see here. Kaiser Nail is kind of a main centerpiece in traditional blue and yellow strategy, because you're using that to bring out a lot of your very powerful on-play effects. Things like Magna-Angemon, things like Mistimon, things like even the regular BT1 Angemon as well. So you can constantly bring them out of your evolution stacks, and instead of having to play them, hard playing them basically from your hand, you instead evolve on top of them and then use Kaiser Nail to pull them out for a little bit cheaper to get the benefits of their effects. This deck plays a little bit similarly to that effect, but also has the added benefit of pulling out some purple cards as well out of Digivolution sources to trigger very powerful on-play effects over on this end as well. And so yellow-blue is kind of a deck in its own right, and blue-purple is also a deck in its own right. So we kind of put our heads together and said, why not both? And this is kind of the masterpiece that you see, is kind of the culmination of all of the theories that we've had. So I'm going to make a quick jump through each individual color, and I'll kind of go over the list as a whole and talk about some of the changes that were made. So the first, we're going to talk about the blue section. This is largely the same compared to what you've seen in the original Mega Zoo list. We got 4 of the BT Gabumon. This is the inheritable on deletion, you get to gain a memory. The Leomon were on deletion, you gain 2 memory, so when you combo them 2 together, when Leomon is effectively destroyed, you will gain 3 memory total. 4 of the BT Gabumon on play get a draw card. These are in different sleeves because these are actually from the my Omnimon blue deck. Originally I was playing just 3 copies, which are these ones here. And instead The fourth was actually one copy of Wizardmon that was originally part of this pile over here, but I decided to change it for 4 Gabumon total, just to add a bit more consistency and have 8 rookies instead of 7, just for the off chance, or increase the chances of you starting with a rookie to be able to evolve and kind of draw into more powerful cards. And then to round off the blue engine, we play 4 Hammerspark, as one does in blue, and 4 copies of Kaisernail. And again, Kaisernail is kind of the most powerful addition to the blue package as a whole. Kaisernail lets you take a card that's in your Digivolution sources and play it for free. Without having to pay its evolution cost, you're just paying the Kaisernail cost. And if it's tripped in your security, you get that same benefit as well. Moving on to the yellow package. So in the yellow Mega Zoo deck, we use Magna Angemon and Slash Angemon as an engine to control our opponent's board to try to keep them off of threats. In this version, what we're doing instead is that we're pairing Magna Angemon with Kentorosmon. And what Kentorosmon does instead, if you're unfamiliar, is that on Digivolution, you get to target up to 5 of your opponent's Digimon, and they get security attack -2 until the end of the turn. So what this effectively does is that it kind of debuffs their entire board and prevents them from actually attacking you as the player. It minimizes their ability to actually do security attacks against you. So if they do attack, they either have to attack your Digimon specifically, because if they attack you as the player, their attacks will literally do nothing. They're just suspending their Digimon for the sake of suspending their Digimon. And what Kentorosmon does, as well as an additional bonus, is that on his specific deletion, you can actually reduce an opponent's DP by 11,000, which is his exact stat as well. So we built this deck to kind of take advantage of, similarly how purple plays where you want to delete your own stuff to gain advantage, we want to kind of take that a step further and say, what cards outside of purple generate the best advantage by being deleted? And that's Kentorosmon and Leomon. So by combining Chimeramon, which on play, I'm going to skip ahead to purple a little bit, Chimeramon's on play, you get to delete one other of your personal Digimon to delete a level 5 or lower of your opponent's Digimon. You can kind of see that when we kind of extrapolate this from the purple mindset specifically and take it across the breadth of good Digimon that have very strong on-deletion effects, we can actually take advantage of Chimeramon in a kind of a fun and different light. So to round off the remaining yellow package, we have 2 Mistymons. Mistymon's another good ultimate. It's kind of a replacement for Volcanic Dramon in this version of the deck, because on play, you get to reduce 2 of your opponent's Digimon's DP by 3,000. Now, this isn't as powerful as Volcanic Dramon, because a lot of standard Rookie Rush strategies that Volcanic Dramon is meant to actually counter, they play a lot of 4,000 DP Digimon, and a lot of them are now shifting to the Champion Rush as well strategy, where they're playing things like Gorillamon and Vegemon, which Volcanic Dramon can't touch anyway. So Mistymon's only really good against, the standard 2-cost vanilla Digimon or anything like that, or opposing Gabumons, or the starter deck Agumons as well, things like that. So if your opponent does decide to go wide with rookies, Mistymon can kind of potentially shoot them both down. But the reason Mistymon is in the deck is that we wanted additional yellow ultimates to step up into our Kentorosmon, and then we can Kaisernail Mistymon out, depending on certain circumstances as well, to destroy our opponent's board or disrupt their board if necessary. 3 Magnadramon. Magnadramon is in here for 2 reasons. It helps us recover our security because we're not playing any blockers to last a little bit longer in the game, and it also allows us to evolve over our ultimates to activate our Kaisernail later. You saw this combo in the match with JoDobbi, where we actually evolved Magnadramon on top of our Magna Angemon, and then Kaisernailed the Magna Angemon out to recover an additional security card. Then we're playing one of the starter deck TK and 2 of the set 1 TK. Now, originally this was 3 of the set 1 TK, but we decided to change it to this one here. And the starter deck TK is it gives all of your security Digimon plus 2,000. And one of the things we found in testing this deck in the original draft was that because all of our Digimon cap out, the highest top end we have is 11,000. Pretty much the majority of the format is just plowing through our security and not getting punished for it. Worst case scenario, they can tie with an 11,000. But because we're in an Omnimon format where 12,000 is kind of somewhat magic number to beat, barring Omnimon, of course, and Millenniummon, bumping our security up to 13,000 will at least mean that we can punish our opponents for attacking with those big level 6s and prevent them from making Omnimon afterwards. And then the 2 TK as well is just because there's a big chunk of the deck that's yellow, almost literally 1/3 of it. So by playing TK, we can kind of fish any of the yellow cards that we need out of our security. And it's also a memory tamer that allows us to start our turn with 3. And then finally, we're rounding off our yellow cards with 3/7 Heavens. Again, this version of the deck has a lot less hard removal because we're not playing things like Gaia Force, so we have to kind of supplement the removal that we do have with the best possible options in the color scheme that we're playing, which in this case is 7 Heavens. So 7 Heavens for 7, you get to reduce the DP of a Digimon by 10,000. Well, that's not necessarily good in taking out big, level 6s. It can pretty much tear down any level 5 in the game, and when you combo it in terms of attacking over something, you can generally reduce something to a point where you can run it over with any of your Digimon. And when it's hit in security, you can take out, an opponent's blocker or an opponent's other rookie that they might be planning to evolve over top of. So it's still a good form of removal. It just doesn't hit the same amount of heights that the hard removal cards in most, like red decks, for example, would want to hit. And then finally, we're going to move over to the purple package. So the first thing you're going to notice in the purple is the 2 copies of Lilithmon. And in the feature match with JoDobbi, we are actually playing 2 copies of Venom Myotismon. So originally the theory was that we could evolve Venom Myotismon on top of a Chimeramon after it was played. And then Venom Myotismon was a very powerful card in its own right because it had security attack +1, and on the opponent's turn, every time your opponent suspends one of their Digimon, whether it is to attack or anything like that, they actually lose a memory. The problem we are finding with Venom Myotismon is that he costs 4, and when we're playing our memory gainer tamers like TK and Matt over here, our opponent will usually play in a way that it usually caps us out to start the turn at 4. Or start the turn at 3, rather. So 4 was kind of an awkward number that we couldn't quite take advantage of. We couldn't play it without ending our turn. And originally, we were also playing 1 copy of the blue starter deck mat, which was then replaced with the purple mat, which I'll get to as we go down the purple cards, to kind of mitigate that 4 cost. But we found that this kind of combo never really came up. And Lilithmon was a lot more powerful because not only did it cost 3 to evolve, which means we could evolve it over Chimera, go to 0, and not end our turn. If we happen to have 10 or more cards in our trash, we could bring back some of our powerful purple options. However, Lilithmon reads that when you activate any option, doesn't have to be a purple option, you gain 2 memory back. This means that if you combo this with something like Hammer Spark, you'll gain 3 memory if you have a Lilithmon on board just for activating 1 Hammer Spark. And that was kind of an interaction that was too good to deny. Furthermore, in combination with that, we can now Kaiser Nail for 2. We can 7 Heavens for 5. We can Trump Sword for 5. We can even Heat Viper for 3. All these powerful option cards we have in the deck that we can benefit from a reduced cost. And because Lilithmon has synergy with Chimeramon already and only costs 3, it was kind of a no-brainer to include her in this deck. And that's why she replaces this Venom Myotismon. So we're playing 4 copies of Chimeramon. Again, we've alluded to Chimeramon a little bit earlier on in the video. Chimeramon, on play, delete one of your Digimon, and then you take out one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. So again, the big bread and butter combo with this deck was to combo Chimeramon and delete your copy of Kentorosmon. This allows you to delete one of your opponent's level 5 or less Digimon, and then you get to reduce 11,000 off of another. And in the video that you see with JoDobbi, we actually take advantage of this combo to destroy one of his level 5, I believe it was a blocker, but then the Kentorosmon actually takes out a level 6, which is his Beelzemon. And that's super, super strong because now you're getting a 2-for-1 off of your 1 Chimeramon. And so we literally designed this deck just to pull off that specific combo and then realize that, we can actually build upon the Chimeramon and kind of add more consistency and more layers of power to it with other extraneous purple cards. But yeah, so that's pretty much the entire purpose of Chimeramon. You play it, you just pop one of your Digimon, and then you take someone else with them. And because Kentorosmon and Leomon specifically touch on Leomon, if you pop a Leomon to play your Chimeramon effectively only costs 5 because you're gaining 2 memory back of the Leomon. But Chimeramon is really good because you can attack with any one of your Digimon, and then once you kind of used up that Digimon as an attacker, you can then destroy them with Chimeramon to take another threat off your opponent's board. Moving on, we've got 3 copies of Trump Sword. Similar to 7 Heavens, we just want to play as much effective removal in the color package that we're playing. And then 1 copy of Heat Viper. Heat Viper is very strong again because we can delete 1 Kentorosmon to take out 2 level 4 or lower Digimon. And again, similar with Leomon, we can combo them in capacities where we delete our Digimon to get further ahead to take away our opponent's options. And because we just play the 1 because it doesn't come up as often, and with Lilithmon you can potentially recur it back, and even with Matt we can potentially recur it back. So the last purple card in the deck is the Matt. So originally, because we were playing 3 of this TK, we wanted to just play at least 3 Tamers that could get us to the 3 memory threshold every turn. So by pairing it by having 2 TK and 1 Matt instead, we're still within that threshold, and Matt's power level was kind of too good to deny, because having Matt on the field means that we already have a purple card in play to play our purple options if we don't have one of these Digimon already on the field. And again, he lets us recur a lot of these powerful cards back. So if we have a Kentorosmon in play already, we can play Matt to get Chimeramon and set up a very powerful combo, either on this turn if we have enough memory, or the following turn if our if the kind of sequence of play allows for it. And the final 2 cards in the deck are 2 copy of Puppetmon. Now, I know I called it tricolor, but I don't necessarily consider Puppetmon a color per se in the deck, simply because he's just here as an extra tech. And Puppetmon exists here solely because once your opponent realizes that you're playing purple cards and you're on stuff like Trump Sword, they will generally do everything in their power to suspend their Digimon and kind of swing out every turn with their most powerful Digimon so they don't lose their Digimon and they're not susceptible to Trump Sword. So because your opponent's purposely suspending as much as they purposely they want, we can follow up with Puppetmon and just lock them down and make sure that those Digimon cannot attack or unsuspend again on the next turn. And that's another reason why we took out the Venom Myotismon, because the Venom Myotismon strategy kind of clashed with Puppetmon. Because with Venom Myotismon, your opponent's actually inclined not to suspend their Digimon, otherwise they'll lose memory. Which means, yeah, they're more susceptible to Trump Sword, but Puppetmon does is that once your opponent realizes that you're on purple, they will actively suspend their Digimon, as opposed to Venom Myotismon, which they will actively refuse to suspend their Digimon. So by putting them in a position where they're actively suspending their Digimon on a regular basis, Puppetmon becomes much more powerful. But yeah, that is the deck. So this is a kind of a fun, neat little experiment that we've put together within the 1.0 card pool. It's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to give it a shot. But if you have any comments or suggestions, or if there's anything you would like to change about this deck, feel free to leave me a comment and I will get to it. And if you guys want to see more gameplay videos with this deck, make sure to let me know, like the video. And if you like what you see here and you like what we're doing at OverGround, feel free to subscribe. And that'll be a great help to the channel. But thanks so much for watching today. I have been Mike, aka Synaku, and we'll see you guys in the next one.